Well guys, b.a.s.s just released a press release on their technology standardizations moving forward into the year 2025. And what's crazy about it is it's going to affect a lot of anglers on the highest level, but for anglers coming into the pros, it is going to make becoming a professional angler on the b.a.s.s trail easier than ever. And let's talk about what those changes are.
Boat number 70, Stevie Ray Brave.
Did I tell you guys to catch big fish on these?
Don't believe in that, it's huge.
No. All right, guys.
I knew that black and blue would do it.
Another bite. Oh, got him. Drop shot queen strikes again. I really wanted to start taking the stream seriously. The first major change, this guy right here, the forward-facing sonar or live imaging technology, depending on how you want to look at it or call it. This is going to be the biggest change because they are limiting it to where you can only have one of these guys mounted on board. And it has to be mounted to your trolling motor, so no more of the forward-facing sonar mounted on the transom or anything like that. It can only be mounted on the front trolling motor. But that is not the only rule change that is going to affect anglers moving forward in the 2025 season. Let's talk about it. So guys, a lot of these changes have been a year in the making from the technology committee over at b.a.s.s. They have interviewed conservation experts, they have interviewed anglers, professionals throughout the fishing industry to come up with a standardization and rule change that is going to not only level the playing field, but also maintain the integrity of the sport. And really, like, one of the disheartening things about anglers like me who are looking to eventually go professional is the cost that comes along with competing on that level. You got some guys that have $50,000 just in electronics. They have giant screens, 21-inch screens at the bow, you know, 2 giant screens at the back, crappie brakes, or also anchor mounted trolling motors that allow them to stop and all this kind of stuff. And all that adds up so much when it comes to hurting your wallet. And with all these changes that are being made, it really levels the playing field out when really you have no competitive advantage just because you have more money to throw into technology. Now, the technology committee over at b.a.s.s has been spending a year developing on what rules should be changed, what should be eliminated, and what they're actually going to be adding, which is probably the most exciting to the rule changes. But first, like I said, forward-facing sonar is going to be limited to 1 live unit per boat, and it has to be mounted to the trolling motor. The next one is they are shrinking the amount of screens that you can have. You can only have 55 inches of screen on the boat moving forward into the 2025 season. Now, what does that mean? Well, the main concern was safety. I don't know if you guys have been following the trail this year, but there have been a lot of boat accidents. And one of the things they contribute that to is the large screens that people are mounting specifically to the head or the console, and hindering the ability to safely pilot a boat because it's creating blind spots. So one of the best ways that they're going to combat it is just limit it to 55 inches of screen per boat. Now, is that going to affect a lot of anglers? Probably. And the reason being is because if you look at a lot of setups, they got at least 5 screens that are probably around 12 inches apiece. Now, that means that they're going to have to be more selective on which screens that they go big and which screens they go small. Me personally, I have no problem. I only have 2 screens on my boat and I get around just fine with that, which is a 9-inch up front for my live facing sonar, and then a 12-inch in the back for side scan, down scan, 2D and mapping. I mean, eventually I would like to add another screen, but that's still going to keep me well beneath the 55 inches. Now, another interesting rule change is this year on 2024, you have seen a large number of anglers adding what some people call crappie brakes or electric motors to their shallow anchors on the back to allow them to stop the boat or slow down the boat without stirring up a lot of debris or anything like that to scare fish. Now, while that is a very crafty way of using technology, however, there has been some concerns raised by the b.a.s.s technology committee that it makes certain rules like trolling or long lining harder to enforce. So I personally feel that this is a great rule to impose, just because of the fact you're adding more dollar signs that give certain anglers that have the money to spend a competitive advantage over others that may have more skill and that just don't have the piggy bank. Those 3 rule changes really level the playing field to where you're not able to basically spend more than another angler to get a competitive advantage. You really have to be able to outfish them. Now, is this gonna drastically change the price of boats or anything like that? Probably not, but it is going to make it a more level playing field to where there's basically a cap on how much you can spend in technology. But to me, the most exciting rule change, really not really a rule change, but just what the organization is doing to make it more competitive and more interesting for viewership, as well as anglers, is they're looking at a more diverse schedule moving into 2025 that is going to require skills in not only fishing offshore, but as well as beating the bank, being able to fish tidal fisheries. And you're gonna need a lot more than technology to find success with that change. Now, a lot of people probably don't feel like that's true, but however, I don't know about you guys, but typically I find it much easier to fish the old-fashioned power fishing way along the bank, you know, flipping, pitching, that kind of stuff. That's the way I like to fish. And going to a very deep lake like Champlain, I'd probably have a disadvantage. However, with technology, it bridges that gap. Now, with most of the fisheries being to where you can use that technology to absolutely dominate by going to different fisheries that you can't necessarily utilize that technology in the same way. For example, you go to a shallow grass lake, you're not going to be able to use forward-facing sonar in the same way. You might be able to use it to find structure, but you're not going to be able to use it to isolate certain fish. So it gives the angler who doesn't necessarily use the forward-facing sonar to isolate certain fish to still be able to go out and use their skills to outmatch anglers that do. So with that diversity change, like I said, that is probably the most exciting for me. I am really happy that they did decide to limit some of this technology, because if you think about it, like a lot of these anglers had 5 live units on their boat, like 2 on the transom, 2 up front, some on the sides, and it was getting so ridiculous. Like you had guys spending $50,000 to $100,000 just in technology just to get that competitive edge. And like I said, like I personally feel like you shouldn't be allowed to leverage money to get a competitive advantage over someone else just because you're lacking in skill. So what I think this is going to do ultimately is it's going to open up the Bassmaster Elites to a lot of anglers like myself, like the aspiring professional anglers that don't necessarily come from a money background and that are earning their way there, because this makes it so much more affordable to be competitive. At this point, the only thing that makes my boat less competitive than everyone else on the Elite Series is the fact that they have a 250 and I only have a 150. Now, is that an easy thing to like change? Yes. But I personally feel that this is the best thing that has happened in bass for a very long time. And the reason being is because ultimately you're going to see a lot of anglers like that discrepancy in skill. You're going to see that a lot more. All the anglers that were so reliant on the technology are going to start struggling. And you're going to see the anglers that weren't so reliant on the technology really start dominating, because they are going to have all that knowledge. And without that knowledge, that I personally feel with the changes, you're not going to be able to compete on the same level as the guys that have been doing it for a while, the guys that like are creative with the way they fish, and not just looking at pixels on a screen. So these decisions honestly have skewed my plan a little bit. Originally, I wanted to go Bassmaster Elites. And the reason being is because it is the highest level of fishing there is. I understand there's a lot of MLF fans, there's also the MPFL fans, but to me, the prestige comes from the Classic, comes from the Bassmaster Elites. And I wanted to be on that stage. However, with the conservation efforts that MLF does, I was kind of leaning maybe going that route for the in between being for the next couple years. Now, with these changes showing that they care about conservation, they care about the tradition of the sport, and most of all, they care about leveling the playing field, so it's not just an avalanche just because someone can spend more money than me. That to me shows the dedication that the b.a.s.s organization has to the sport, and really makes me want to aim just for that, because I want to be under a banner that is all about fairness and maintaining the integrity of the sport. And now these changes, I can't help but question if these changes were made so quickly after the NPFL just announced their banning of forward-facing sonar. And I have a feeling that the MLF is also going to be coming out here shortly with some rule changes as well, just because this seems to be the trend that everyone's going to. And unfortunately, with all the controversy over forward-facing sonar, they even said in their press release that that was a major component. And when they presented these changes to B.a.s.s CEO Chase Anderson, after the 2025 schedule was announced earlier this week, he went ahead and approved these changes and standardizing technology for the organization moving forward. Now, I don't know about you guys, but these are exciting times. Like I said, like, it makes it so that anyone are able to compete. And for me, that makes it easier now than ever for average Joes like me to become professional anglers. So let me know what you guys think about these changes in the comment, whether you agree with them, whether you don't, whether you're excited like me, or you think that they're overreacting. I would really like to hear your opinions. If you guys are following along in the favorite Solstice Baitcaster giveaway, today's code word is going to be the future, because I honestly believe that we are moving towards a future in bass fishing that is going to be have more integrity, be more fair, and more challenging more than ever. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Now go catch a fish.